Welcome to the HuntFishTravel Podcast. I am your hostess, Carrie Z. Super excited about this week's episode. We're talking about hunting in Australia, which honestly has never been on my radar. But after this episode, I'm pretty geeked to get out there. I don't know if I ever will, but it would be great. But before we get into the episode, just some quick business. No, don't fast forward because you're going to want to listen to this. Obviously, the podcast is sponsored by Spy Point Trail Cameras, by Montana Decoy, and by Radians Inc. They're wonderful companies, and they are very generous companies. They've all given me a bunch of stuff to give away. So, the only way that you can qualify for the giveaways is to sign up for the newsletter, and that's huntfishtravel.com/newsletter. I don't sell your information. I don't give it away. I don't spam it. It's literally, you might get an email once a month or twice a month, just in case you missed it, here are the episodes, etc., etc. But to qualify for the giveaways, you have to just be on the newsletter list. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's literally, I'm not making you like the Facebook page. I'm not making you jump through 83 million hoops to get yourself we've got turkey decoys from Montana Decoy to give away. We've got trail cameras. We've got shooting gear. We've got, of course, the HuntFishTravel swag. I mean, we've got a bunch of stuff to give away that I need to get out of this house. So we're going to be doing monthly giveaways at the end of each month. So be sure to sign up at huntfishtravel.com/newsletter. If you're driving, do not stop and do it now. Just do it when you get home. So other than that, on to the episode.
Welcome to the HuntFishTravel Podcast, the first and longest running female-hosted hunting podcast. She thinks at the end of the day your feet should be dirty, that your hair should be messy, and your eyes should be sparkling from the joy of camping. But first, she's ready to help you navigate your trip of a lifetime. And now, here's your hostess, Carrie Zilka.
Welcome to the HuntFishTravel Podcast. I am your hostess, Carrie Z. This is a super exciting episode because we are on the line with Max, one of the owners of True Blue Broadheads. But what makes us super unique is they are based out of Australia, and I've never talked to anybody from Australia, so I'm super excited. So Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I mean, the listeners are probably annoyed with all the times I'm like, I'm so excited, but this time I really am super excited. So
That's all right. That's cool. Yeah, I think even just having that quick chat beforehand, we got on here, and I can tell it's going to be an interesting episode because of just all the contrasting features of Australia versus the United States, you know?
Definitely. Well, why don't you explain to the listeners exactly where, because Australia is pretty big, so specifically where in Australia you are located?
No problem. So I'm based in the state of New South Wales. I'm about 2 to 3 hours away from our capital city of Sydney, based in a small country town called Bathurst. So we originally grew up in Sydney area, and we've kind of decided that we want to live in the country life. So we've moved out here and bought ourselves a bit of land, and yeah, it's been good. It's been really good.
So I'm looking on the map. How far are you from the coast? Just out of curiosity.
About 3 hours.
Okay, not too far.
I would say, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a long distance for a saltwater swim. Yeah.
For a day at the beach. Pretty cool. What kind of climates do you guys have there? So, like right now, what is the temperature? Is it winter there? Because it's summer here. Are you guys opposite of us? I don't even know.
Yeah, it is opposite. Yeah. It's summer in our Christmas, if that helps. But yeah, so right now it's absolutely freezing. I don't know how to convert to Fahrenheit, so I will use Celsius. But it's 4 degrees below freezing point at the moment.
Okay, so that makes it 25 degrees Fahrenheit here. So that's pretty cold.
Yeah, it's cold. It's very cold. But it gets really hot here too. Like we get, I think where I am, we probably get tops of 40 degrees Celsius.
Oh my God, that's 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That's freaking crazy.
but I've seen it as high as 50 degrees Celsius. That's probably the hottest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. You literally feel like you're dying.
I would die. I don't think you understand.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of good videos going around where people are cracking eggs and putting them on the road and cooking them.
That's bananas. That's crazy. There's no way. So I get real cranky when it's 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be like 23 degrees here Celsius. So you can imagine I would just melt. There's no way I could do it. My God, never visit Australia in summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus. So
I haven't told you this yet, but I wanted to let you know that anyone who uses the code HuntFishTravel Show through this podcast will automatically get a 20% discount across our website as well.
Oh,
so,
fabulous.
Just for having us on the show. I really appreciate the time you've taken out. So, yeah, if you use the code HuntFishTravel Show, any of your listeners will get a 20% discount on literally everything across our store.
Wow, thank you. I'll link to that in the show notes so that people can get there easily. That's really nice of you. Thank you. Because I'll be honest with you, I was looking at your broadheads, and obviously I work with Montana Decoy is one of our biggest supporter, and they have Wasp Archery, which I love their broadheads, but I'm not exclusive to them. And looking at your broadheads, they look really slick.
Thank you.
Let's start there. So let's just start there. Why don't you tell me how you became the owner of True Blue Broadheads?
Yeah, I guess not many people have really asked me that question. But how do I even start? So I get into archery only about 8 years ago. I got into archery. My parents didn't come from a hunting background. But my grandparents in Australia, during financially challenging times, used to hunt for kangaroos and rabbits and stuff like that as a bit of like a financial assistance to the challenge that they were going through at the time. But in terms of hunting background, had none at all. And then my business partner, now business partner, who I went to school with, he picked up a bow and he was shooting, and I thought, this is a lot of fun. We'll give it a go. And I remember having a distinct conversation with him saying, I'll always do archery, but I don't think I could ever hunt anything. I don't think I could do this. And then we fast forward the clock 8 years, and I own a broadhead business. So the big thing for me was getting out into the bush and hunting. I really enjoyed it, and I thought, what a great way to harvest food and put food on the table. I haven't been to a supermarket to buy red meat in probably 4 years. If we go to a pub or something or restaurant, I'll eat food. But we just supply ourselves entirely off wild game meat, and I just think that's just the coolest thing. So, but when I was out hunting, I realized pretty quickly that there's no set standard really for broadheads. There's a lot of companies that get out there and they say, hey, we've got the best broadhead. It will do A, B, C, and D. And their marketing campaign is 2 or 3 times better quality than the actual broadhead itself. And I realized that the legal framework that holds broadhead companies accountable to their gear is just non-existent. So I kind of thought to myself, hey, if we can get into this and we can make more ethical broadheads like arrowheads that we are hunting with and we know that are going to put animals down more efficiently, let's get into it. Let's do it. And it's actually a bit of a sad thing. It's a double-ended sword, but when my dad passed away about 4 years ago, which is roughly when we started True Blue. And when my grandfather passed away, he gave each of his children, so my dad, 10,000 Australian dollars and said, hey, do something great with it. And so when my dad passed away, he said, before he passed, he said, when I go, I want you and your two sisters to take $10,000 Australian and do something good with it. Don't waste it. Do something good with it. And my sisters went and travelled the world, and I decided to start a broadhead business. So I approached Phil and I said, hey, Dad's giving me this money, and it's pretty important to me that we do something good with it. Let's go. And so I always think that there would be a way more masculine if we were having a glass of scotch and sitting around a fire talking about broadheads, but we were actually in a cafe and we were drawing designs on the back of napkins. And I told Phil, I was like, hey, I've got this mad idea for a broadhead called a crossbreed. You can see it on our website, but it essentially was designed to accompany any broadhead and create a far more ethical kill for any bow hunter that, decide to use it. And it wasn't just, a lot of people go out and they hunt with 100 grain, 125 grain broadheads, but they don't really, I guess, get into the physics side of things. And so we did. And that's how we patented the design, because it's the only, I guess, one in Australia. So, one in the world is the crossbreed technology. So, yeah, sorry, I just rambled a bit there. I apologize.
That's okay. No, that's perfect. Okay, first off, what a spectacular homage to your father. What a great way to use that money that he left you instead of just spending it on bullshit or, just dumb stuff. Like, good for you. That's really, really, really cool. Number 2.
Thank you.
So looking at the crossbreed, so I have shot mechanicals in the past. Tell me what's different between this mechanical broadhead and any of the other broadheads specifically.
Sure, no problem. So on the website, you'll see photos of them. You can tell, like, it's got like a black anodized body, and then it's got that silver chisel tip up the top. The thing is that unit as itself is 125 grains, but that actual chisel tip can be removed, and any broadhead in the world, it's a universal fit, can be accepted by the crossbreed. So you can add any broadhead as the tip and then replace the chisel tip with a Magnus, with a cut, with a slick trick, with literally any broadhead. Even some people go to the point and get like another mechanical and put it up the front. It turns from a mechanical broadhead which is extremely sharp. Like there's a video on John Lusk Archery Adventures. He does broadhead reviews, and we came first for broadhead sharpness. There's not many companies that even come close to how sharp our blades are. So that was a key element. Like when we talk about taking an animal's life, we want it to be quick and efficient, and one of the best ways to do that is to ensure blades are quite sharp, and that's they're chemically sharpened. And they go through quite an extensive process to get them that sharp. I guess the main idea between taking the chisel tip out and replacing it with a fixed blade is that you're creating a much higher FOC broadhead, generally sitting around that 200 grain mark, and then you're adding additional blades, and you're creating a system as well. Like I used to go out in the bush and shoot mechanicals, and I couldn't stand when they failed. I couldn't stand it when they deployed and they were so dull that when it went into an animal, that the animal didn't pass. I mean, I have distinct memories of getting into bow hunting and using, I'm not going to talk down other broadhead companies, but using another brand's mechanical. And I remember putting nearly 3 arrows into this goat. And it's all I had in my quiver, and all I had was the mechanical. And I ended up having to take that animal's life with a knife and have it on the ground and have it in a lot of pain and very distressed. And I remember standing there and crying and being like, I don't think I could ever shoot another animal with a bow again. I think I'll put the bow down. So what I thought straight away is I need to create a broadhead that, because I think mechanical technology has its place.
Yes.
But it needs, if you're going to make one, you need to make it to a very high standard. And so when you add a fixed blade to the crossbreed, it can't fail. It literally can't fail, because if, for example, you use a 4-blade slick trick up the front and you shoot it at a white-tailed deer, if the blades deploy, bonus, you've got your flick trick doing its thing, and then you've got your crossbreed 2 inches behind, and it creates a significant wound. We've done bleed tests where we cross, like if we did a flick trick by itself versus a flick trick and a crossbreed, the bleed outlet is like 65% increase or something like that at the top end of town. But if it doesn't deploy and the band doesn't open and those blades don't come out, well, now you've got a 200 grain slick trick with 2 bleeder blades open.
I was just thinking about that. So, I'm just kind of doing the math in my head, and I'm like, okay, well, my 125s, and it feels, I'm like, that's some punching power. That's some serious, and not only that, the FOC, the front of center weight, which literally drives the broadhead. It literally, is the punching point. That's pretty, I'm blown away, I'll be honest, and it's hard to impress me. I'm really quite blown away with this. I am. If people will tell you I'm a total fucking snob. I'm blown away. This is really interesting.
I just found it interesting as well, like that it hadn't been made, because it's quite basic physics. Like when you look at a bow, it's kind of like a bow curve. Like it's I don't know how to explain it without a diagram, but there's a turning point between FOC and a weight arrow, a weight in an arrow, and there's like a curvature at the top where you're going to get the most penetration possible. And 200 grains, roughly, when we took into account the drag placed upon the arrow from those additional 2 mechanical blades, we didn't want it to hinder.
Wait. You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. Oh, that's better. Sorry.
Is that better?
Were you looking at your bow as you were talking away from the microphone?
I was. How did you know?
I might have done it a few times.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
So that's okay. So I guess like if you look at how much drag would be created by those blades as they enter tissue, we needed to make sure that we weren't losing penetration, because then the whole objective of this broadhead being ethical was lost. It needed to be able to match the penetration of the broadhead that the consumer would already be using, or exceed it. That was the goal. So when you look at physics between, people using different poundage bows, that 200 grains roughly to 225 is kind of the golden ticket. That's where we want to sit. That's why we designed it. It's fully threaded all the way through, so it can take any broadhead. And it's designed in a way so that it will always be that weight, and it will always match that expectation that it will actually have we'll never make a 130 grain model, 125 grain model, or 150 grain, or a 75 grain model, because that is right there, right in the middle, is exactly where it needs to be. So, no, we're very proud of it. Very happy. So.
You should be. That's pretty clever. Really quite clever. So I also, for any new listeners who don't know, I also host the Bowcast Archery Podcast. So I'll probably be posting this over there too, because people are going to be like, what? That's amazing. So,
thank you.
Very, very cool. So, all right, now that we went down the archery rabbit hole, let's talk a little bit about using your broadheads. So I personally don't know a whole lot of anything about hunting in Australia. And I'm assuming, have you ever hunted in the U.S.?
No, that's definitely a goal. Okay. No, I haven't.
So, do you talk to a lot of people who hunt in the U.S.? Like, I was going to ask you what you think are the biggest, glaring differences, I think.
But you guys have seasons?
Oh, well, that's true.
We don't.
Wait, you guys are open hunting all the time?
Yep. Every day. I could literally hang up this phone and drive 45 minutes and go hunting. And don't have to talk to anyone, don't have to say anything to anyone. It's just go do it. No government involvement, just go.
That's crazy. So how do you regulate your herds and stuff? Like, how do you... Well, I'm assuming you don't have problems with overhunting like we do. Otherwise, there would be seasons.
I guess there's a couple of big factors. So in America, you guys have your native species like your whitetail, your bears, your elk, even your coyotes, all those animals. They're all your native animals, so they always were there. So there's, I guess, a really good reason to protect them. In Australia, we don't hunt our native species. If you get caught hunting native species, especially with a bow, it's extremely prohibited. Like I don't know exactly the laws around it, but I would not be surprised if there's jail time associated with it. There are certain licenses like for culling and getting rid of, kangaroos and that kind of thing, because they can become quite problematic. But other than that, we don't touch any of our native wildlife. What we do hunt, though, is our introduced species, which are in significant numbers. So Australia, our landmass is, and we might need to fact check this, but if you look at the size of Australia, it's pretty much the same size as the United States, yet we have only 27 million people living here.
Yeah.
So, and most of those people sit along the coast. So when we talk about introduced species, there's not terribly a lot of people hunting them and getting rid of them. So they've been able to come in such numbers that it's just a given that we go out and we hunt them, which is awesome. It's a double-ended sword. Like people are like, oh, introduced species are so bad for the environment, but if we didn't have them, there would be no hunting culture here in Australia. So it is a good thing, in a way.
Yeah. And I just kind of Googled, just out of curiosity. So you guys have, this is why we need seasons, because you guys have 27 million people and only about 300,000 recreational hunters in Australia. We have 330 million people and 15 million hunters in the U.S. So, I mean, the numbers are so different. And if we just let everybody just go hunt whatever they want, we would just have nothing left.
Yeah. Yep.
That's interesting. Yep. I guess I assumed more people hunted in Australia. I don't know why. Maybe because everything there wants to kill you. So I feel like hunting that, makes sense. But maybe not. That's so when you say native species, you're talking about like kangaroos, obviously like koala bears and such like that. What species have been introduced that you do hunt? Boars? Because they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
What
there's
else?
There's more pigs in Australia, wild pigs in Australia, than there are people.
That's nuts. My God, that's because they breed like crazy. So what else are you allowed to hunt?
Okay, so we've got a fair few different deer species that have come from all parts of the world. So we've got our fallow deer, which all these deer that I'm going to mention are just gorgeous. And the reason that they're in the country is like there's such a historical background to why they're here. But like we've got our fallow deer, which are from Europe. We've got red stag as well. So we've got wild red stag, which are from parts of England and Scotland and Europe as well. We also have, you guys call them axis deer, tittle. We have them here. We've got rusa, which from memory are a Indonesian deer from one of our northern countries that are surround us. They're quite a cool looking deer. Then we've got hog deer, which are a really, really small deer. They would be almost like the size of your common dog, like a Labrador or something like that, I guess. Or probably smaller, to be honest, maybe the size of a beagle. I've only seen them once in real life. And what else we got? I can't forget any of these guys. And samba deer as well, which are from Indonesia as well. They're probably our biggest deer species. They don't throw the biggest antlers necessarily, but they are just an amazing animal to hunt. They live in the high country of Victoria, all the way up through New South Wales. They're pretty much everywhere these days. But their sense of smell, their sense of hearing and sight is just amazing. And to catch one with a bow and to get one down with the bow is just such an achievement. So, so that's our deer. We have wild camel.
Wild camel? Like camels? like camel camels?
Like my humps.
Oh my gosh.
Lovely lady. Yeah.
That's what I was like, wait, like camels?
yeah. Like from Egypt.
How on earth did you guys end up with camels? What?
Well, back in the day, so that's I guess the European settlers that came here couldn't get across the middle of Australia because middle of Australia is just a massive desert. Mm-hmm. And I don't know which Arabic country they came from. I might need to look into this, but from one of those kind of desert countries, they actually brought people over to take them across the middle of Australia because there were several explorers that had attempted to go from the east coast to the west coast, and people were dying. Like they were trying to get across, and they weren't able to do it. And this one guy, he said, I'm going to bring in these camels and these guys, and they'll take me across. And he worked with the Aboriginal people, the native people, to get across to the other side because the horses that they were using, every time they'd try to get across, they would run out of water and the horses would die. Whereas the camel had better durability and was used to the desert climate. But in introducing, and I guess that became a bit of a norm, there was camels being imported into Australia. And for, we're talking 150 to 200 and something years ago, there was no regulation around what people did with their camels, probably. So they just let their camels go. And fences got, fence breaks or gates left open. Oh no, the camels are out and it doesn't matter, there's more camels where that came from kind of thing. And all the camels went wild and bred and are now really strong. Actually, I heard the other day, we export camel back to the countries that they originated from because apparently our camels are really good. And there's more camel, and that's actually, it's such a funny thing. Like even New Zealand, a lot of the feral, or we call them feral species. I think it's quite a negative term, but for such beautiful animals, that they some of them are in greater numbers here than they are from the countries that they came from. So, example would be up in our Northern Territory and our northern parts of Queensland, which is like our hotter areas, which are close to the equator. We've got water buffalo, which are from Indonesia. We've got bangtang as well. So bangtang is like an Indonesian cow. And they're just such an amazing looking animal, especially the ones that we get here. If you Google, actually did this the other day, if you Google bangtang, so B-A-N-G and then T-A-N-G, the bangtang, and you just Google that, it'll come up with a whole bunch of Indonesian cows. So if you type in bangtang hunting Australia, there must be, when they opened up the gates here and they let them go up in the territory, it must have been a particular subspecies or something, because ours look very buff. They look really strong and aggressive and they look sick. But you see the Indonesian cows, they look like, I don't know, they look like, not as impressive, I guess. But as I said, they're endangered in Indonesia, but they're in awesome numbers here. I think there's like 10 or 15,000 of them here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then so we got heaps of stuff like that. But we hunt a lot of wild goat. So we hunt wild goat, deer, pigs. Trying to think, camel, buffalo.
I'm still tripping out about camels. That's the funniest shit ever.
Yeah.
For real. Like, I would just never imagine myself hunting camel. It's the most bizarre thing. But, I mean, that's because we don't have them here. Otherwise, we probably would.
Yeah. So. We hunt wild horse, donkey.
Do you? All right.
Yeah. I have never done it myself, but I know what happens.
Sure.
Trying to think what else we got running around. But, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Really.
Wow. That's interesting. That's crazy. Do you have a favorite? Like, what do you have just one that just really trips your trigger that you just love going out and chase?
I love smashing goats.
Really?
Oh, I can't get enough of it.
Really?
It's so much fun. Oh, yeah. Hunting wild goats is so much. That's like, it's so funny how you can go full circle. Like, I started hunting goats as a young bow hunter. And it was like, wild pigs as well are really good to hunt. I really enjoy hunting wild bulls. But they're like your basic. That's what most hunters in New South Wales kind of hunt for. And then, to hunt a red deer or to hunt a fallow deer or even I've hunted water buffalo. That's the pinnacle, like you're in, like, I guess it would be the equivalent of you guys hunting like caribou or elk or something. Like, it's quite a prestigious hunt. But then I can't help it. I just love smashing goats off the side of hills, and I just don't know what it is about them. They're just so much fun. Just bring it back to basics,
That's so funny. So are they?
Do
you have like So whenever I think of goat or sheep hunting, I always think of like the big mountains in Colorado and Utah and such. What kind of terrain are you hunting them there? Is it a lot of desert land, or is it like real rocky, craggy mountains too?
Well, goats are pretty resilient animals. Wherever they're dumped, they will survive. They literally will just eat anything, and they've been used for I'd assume hundreds of years for food and for milk and for their pelts and all those kind of things. I even know that I think where I'm from, they were used in the mine shafts at some stage. Anyway, I guess the reason to my point is that we can find goats I live just on the lower basin of the Great Dividing Range, which is the Blue Mountains. It's a mountain network that stretches from Victoria all the way up through New South Wales and then through far north Queensland. And those environments, from the bottom all the way to the top, will have goats. And you'll find them in rainforests. You'll find them in, like where I am, which is just like native Australian bushland. Like, it's pretty common type of bushland, like trees and ferns and stuff like that. And then up far north into the tropics. But there's also huge, absolutely massive numbers of them further out west, where, as the further you travel travel west of the eastern coast, the landscape changes dramatically. You go from rainforest to bushland to desert quite over the course of 4 to 6 hours. And the goats are in great numbers in the deserts as well. Like huge, absolutely huge numbers. And I think what keeps them in good numbers in the bush is that our native bushland is so sparse and so thick and unexplored. Whereas out in the desert areas, I guess they're more, there's no hills, there's nothing. They're just these big flat, like 20, 30, 40,000 kilometers of just flat nothing and like little crappy trees. I don't even know how they're alive. Like, they just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can, to answer your question, everywhere. They're everywhere.
Just everywhere.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Mm.
It's just wild.
But they do like the hills. I think whenever I've seen goats that have even the slightest amount of pressure on them from hunting, they will always stand at the top of hills. Like the goats are just one of those animals that just crack me up. Like I remember hunting, and I'm on top of this mountain looking for goats, and I find this goat sitting at, it was an amazing rock formation. It was literally like a rock pillar that would have been 30 yards tall, and then there was a mountain to the side of it, and there was like a gap of like 3 meters between this rock pillar and him and the mountain. And he had jumped from the rock mountain to this pillar, and there would have only been 3 yards from one side of this pillar to the other, and he was just chilling. Like that was his spot, like hanging out right on the most dangerous point. And he's like, this is the best. And goats do that all the time. They'll find like the most dangerous rock shelf, mountain shelf, and that's where you'll find them. You'll find them in the danger zone, just hanging out. Yeah, they're cool.
That's
and they make one hell of a, yeah. Yeah, and they communicate and they talk and stuff when you're hunting them, and they just, sounds awful, but when you shoot them as well, I remember Shannon shot one, my wife, and she shot it off the side of a cliff, and it fell about, it was insane. She shot it off the side of this cliff, the first animal she'd ever shot, and she happened to shoot it off this cliff, and it was like 400 yards to the bottom. And as it fell off the cliff, it just didn't stop screaming the whole time.
Oh, my God.
And it was like the most hilarious. It sounds awful. It sounds really bad when I'm saying it out loud.
Right.
But as it fell, it was like, ah! It was
like some like weird comedy video.
Yeah, like a cartoon. Like, obviously not, but it's fun. I think the best bit is my wife started crying and she was like traumatized, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, that was insane. That was like being in Looney Tunes or something.
Oh my God. Yeah. I would just think that the poor thing would just, like the meat would be mangled and the horns would be broken by the time it hit the bottom.
Made an easy job mincing it up.
That's true. Oh my gosh. Very cool. Man. Sounds like a neat place to hunt. I can't wrap my brain around, though, like, I don't know. Anytime anybody's like, oh, I'm going to hunt red stag in Argentina, and I'm like, why? They're not native to Argentina, and it's a lot cheaper, and you can bring the meat home if you just go to Texas. But, you know, I don't know. If somebody were to say, I want to come hunt Australia for the thrill of hunting Australia, what species would you recommend, other than goats, of course? Like, is there one that you think would be really easy or would be good for a beginner Australian hunter?
Yeah, I think, I guess if I was an American coming over to Australia, I guess one of the cool experiences that you could have is hunting our deer rut. Mm-hmm. So our fallow and our red stag ruts are around, like, I guess, kind of April, May, and like late March. They start to have a bit of a rutting period as we kind of dip out of summer into into spring and into winter. Because it's just awesome. Like you can, the deer start to try and mate, so they're screaming at each other, they're yelling, they're scraping trees, they're fighting, and to come out here with rattles and a deer call and call these deer in, it's an unreal experience. So that's a bit of a blood rushing moment when you've got a male fallow deer 100 meters away or 150 yards or whatever it is, and you're using a rattle and you're calling him, and he's coming to charge, he's coming to fight you, and then he rocks up in front and you just shoot him with a bow. That's quite a fun way to hunt. I think one of the other animals that every time I mention hunting Australia, Americans seem to love the idea of hunting water buffalo up in the Northern Territory, which is hard. It's really hard to get access because majority of the land in the Northern Territory is Aboriginal land. So you need to get access. You need to talk to elders, and otherwise it's hunting on cattle ranches or in game, I guess, purposely set up game ranches. So, but yeah, I would say probably the fallow deer, the red deer, and the water buffalo are probably the most iconic reasons to internationally travel and hunt Australia. A lot of people don't know what a bangtang is, but I would say that's probably up there as well.
I Googled it. It's the funniest shit ever. I'm like, oh my God, it's literally like a cow. But like you said, like when you Google bangtang hunting, they're, like you said, they're just like these muscular beasts that look totally different.
Right. I'm not going crazy. Hey, they look so different.
They're right up there. Like they look like an offshoot of the water buffalo types with the horns and everything. And that's neat.
Yeah. We also get wild European cattle as well. And we label them as scrubbable.
Okay.
And because they don't get castrated and they're full of testosterone, they are absolutely units of animals. They are just a big, wild, angry bull that's up in the territories. And yeah, that's probably, between those three are probably our biggest dangerous game, because I guess they're all wild cattle at the end of the day. So yeah, your scrubbable, your bangtang, and your buffalo are probably the highest, I would say, in terms of dangerous game hunting. Like people who are into that kind of stuff, like hunting bears and like they like living on the edge of it. That's probably what I would go for, because it's not just hunting on the pursuit of an animal that will run away from you. You're hunting an animal that will turn around and try to kill you if it gets the chance. Which adds another element, makes it a bit more fun, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
If you're into that.
Yeah. I would think that many of my listeners are, so. Man, very, very, very cool. All right, well, we are bumping up against time, so why don't you explain to listeners where they can go to find you on social media and your website?
Sure. So you can go on our website. It's www.truebluebroadheads.com. We have Instagram, Facebook, a TikTok account. You can join us on any of those. Generally, the content that we post amongst the three are very similar. So, and you can follow. Once you follow us, you'll also get kind of behind the stage footage of when we go out hunting, and you're welcome to give me a follow as well. I do a lot of fishing and outdoors hunting as well, and get out of the boat a bit. So if you kind of want to see the behind the scenes or I guess hunting and fishing culture in Australia, yeah, go ahead and have a look.
Very cool. All right. Well, we will for sure link to everything in the show notes so that they can find you if they're not doing it right this second. And again, I can't thank you enough for wanting to come on the show and explaining what you're doing and talk a little bit about Australia. Something tells me sometimes when I do these like kind of off the wall, never before touched subjects, I get a bunch of emails and stuff with people being like, oh, you didn't ask this question. You didn't ask this question. So I am guessing you'll be asked to do a second follow-up one because I already, I just knowing my listener base, I'll be like, you forgot to ask this. You forgot to ask that.
If your listeners want to get together a whole rap sheet of questions, we can definitely, I'd be more than happy to have another chat with you and answer some of those questions around Australia and hunting here and getting access and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, let's do that. You guys know, I know y'all know how to contact me because I get the damn emails and the messages on the Facebook page. So if anybody has questions out there in podcast listening land, let us know and we'll do a follow-up show. Because I just know I'm going to re-listen to the episode while I edit it and be like, oh, I wish I would have asked that, or oh, I wonder about this. So, yeah, Very, very cool, Max. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I will be posting this in a couple weeks, and I will tag you as soon as it goes live.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time to have me on here.
Thanks for getting up so early.
No problem.
All right. You have a great night. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye. All right. That'll do it. You guys know how to contact me. Again, let's go ahead and get some questions about Australia and hunting in Australia that we may have missed in this episode. You can always reach me on Instagram, instagram.com/HuntFishTravelShow. You can reach me at Twitter, twitter.com/HuntFishTravel, or Facebook, of course, facebook.com/HuntFishTravel. You can always go to HuntFishTravel.com and contact me through the contact tab. We will probably be recording this episode here in the next probably 60 days, I think. So get those questions in. Don't wait. And of course, again, sign up for the newsletter, huntfishtravel.com/newsletter for some awesome giveaways coming up.